There is a silent, almost secret knowledge that spans generations. Knowledge that has never been openly shared with the general public, but rather circulates in small groups, protected, as if it were a hidden treasure. This hidden manuscript of wealth, as some call it, doesn't talk about making money in the ordinary way, nor does it teach quick tricks to get rich. What it reveals is something much deeper, the invisible structure that sustains prosperity. It shows that wealth is not just a balance in a bank account, but a direct reflection of how the mind is organized, disciplined, and oriented. When we understand this, we realize that every thought, every word, and every mental habit has real weight in our experience of financial reality. Most people live believing that wealth is a privilege for the few, as if it were the result of luck, inheritance, or chance. But the manuscript leads us to an uncomfortable revelation. Scarcity is not natural, it is learned. We have been conditioned from an early age to believe in limitations, in lack, in destructive competition, as if there were only room for a few to prosper. However, the human mind, when well-trained, recognizes no such boundaries. It connects to a source of possibilities that never runs dry. The difference between those who live in abundance and those who struggle lies not in external circumstances, but in what they hold as internal beliefs. This idea may seem uncomfortable at first because it forces us to admit that, to a large extent, we are responsible for the quality of life we have today. Recognizing this isn't about blaming ourselves, but about opening a new path. If everything we have is the result of what we cultivate mentally, then the good news is clear. We can change. And change doesn't require magic formulas. It requires re-education of the mind, an inner discipline capable of transforming the way we think, feel, and act in the face of reality. Before we continue, I want you to make a small gesture of commitment. Be sure to hit the like button, but only do so if you truly want to attract wealth into your life. This is a symbolic act. It's like declaring, "I am ready to prosper." This simple phrase acts like a key. Repeat it out loud if possible. Write it in the comments to cement it in your mind. Prosperity begins when you create new mental reference points. Now, imagine for a moment that your current financial life is nothing more than a temporary snapshot, an image that reflects only the thoughts and habits you've maintained up until now. It's not definitive. It's not your final destination. The manuscript shows us that the mind operates like a frequency transmitter. What you constantly think becomes a signal, and this signal organizes external circumstances according to its intensity and clarity. If you live transmitting scarcity, worry, and fear, life naturally brings back more reasons to confirm these same feelings. If, on the other hand, you decide to shift your frequency to trust, gratitude, and positive expectation, a space opens for new possibilities to enter your life. This principle, when applied consistently, reveals why people in seemingly identical situations experience completely different outcomes. Two people can be born in the same city with similar conditions, but one thrives and the other struggles daily. The difference lies not in chance, but in how each has conditioned their minds. The manuscript teaches that what we call external reality is nothing more than a mirror of what is cultivated internally. This is not mysticism, but logic. Your beliefs determine your decisions shape your actions, and your cumulative actions shape your results. Many, however, make the mistake of trying to change results without changing their underlying beliefs. It's like trying to pick oranges from a tree that has always produced apples. The effort will be futile. To change the fruit, you need to change the seeds. This means changing your mindset, the thought patterns you repeat daily, consciously or unconsciously. This is the most demanding part, but also the most liberating. Because when you realize that your mind can be retrained, you understand that you no longer depend on the old stories of scarcity you've repeated for years. One of the manuscript's first instructions is simple yet powerful. Watch your words. They're not just sounds thrown into the wind. Every sentence you utter reinforces a mental pattern. When someone constantly says, "I can't," "it's difficult," or "I can't," they're reinforcing a limiting code in their subconscious. On the other hand, by declaring, "I am open to abundance," wealth flows toward me. You begin to nurture new connections that over and over again become solid beliefs. The secret is not to say empty phrases, but to feel them as truths under construction. Conscious repetition creates new internal habits, and these shape new external realities. The manuscript also warns of a silent enemy: competition. From an early age, we are trained to compete, to believe that in order to win, someone must lose. This mental model creates tension, fear, and limitation. It traps the mind in a logic of scarcity, as if resources were finite. True prosperity, however, arises from creation, not competition. When you decide to create, expand, generate something that previously didn't exist, you connect with a source of unlimited abundance. Life doesn't have to be a race in which only a few reach the top. It can be a journey of continuous expansion, in which each person, by creating, contributes to the growth of collective abundance. That's why an essential practice taught in the manuscript is learning to celebrate the success of others. This may seem counterintuitive, but it makes perfect sense. When you see someone thriving, and instead of envying them, you internally declare, "If they succeeded, it proves I can too." You are reprogramming your mind. You are showing yourself that abundance is expansive, not limited. This simple habit dissolves envy and makes room for you to receive as well. Try it right now. Think of someone who is thriving and say out loud or in your own words, "Their success proves mine is possible." This phrase completely changes your relationship with wealth. Another profound lesson is the power of gratitude, but not ordinary gratitude, the kind that only arises when something good happens. The manuscript teaches about anticipatory gratitude, the ability to give thanks even before seeing the physical result. When you give thanks for what hasn't yet arrived, you're signaling to your subconscious that you believe abundance is a reality. You stop vibrating in lack and start vibrating in what has already been achieved. This state dissolves anxiety and opens space for more confident decisions. Try it. Close your eyes for a moment and say, "I am grateful for the wealth that is already coming to me." Feel this gratitude as if it were real now. This exercise immediately shifts your energy. And here's the key point. Everything starts within. The exterior is merely a reflection. You don't need to wait for your bank account to change before you can think like a prosperous person. On the contrary, it's by thinking like a prosperous person that your bank account changes. The natural order of things is from the inside out. This is the key that the wealthy have understood and guarded for generations, and it is this secret that this manuscript reveals to us. The hidden manuscript reveals a principle that, at first glance, seems so simple that many people underestimate its power. What you focus on grows. It may seem like just a common phrase, but when we analyze it deeply, we realize that it contains the essence of wealth creation. The human mind works like a spotlight. Wherever you direct your attention, it grows, expands, and strengthens. The problem is that most people keep the spotlight focused on lack, debt, difficulties, and limitations. And as a natural consequence, these areas of life gain more and more energy, become more present, and end up repeating themselves. This pattern is so automatic that we often don't notice it. How many times have you caught yourself saying or thinking, "I don't have the money for that. It's too expensive. My life is hard." Each of these phrases is like a command sent to the subconscious, which in turn organizes your perception and actions to maintain this scenario. It's not a matter of bad luck, but of mental conditioning. The manuscript teaches that wealth begins when you reverse this focus. When, instead of wasting energy reinforcing scarcity, you begin directing your attention, words, and thoughts toward abundance, even before it appears in your external life. This process isn't about denying reality. If you have debts today, there's no point in pretending they don't exist. The point is, instead of wasting emotional energy regretting them, you choose to nurture thoughts that build a different future. You face problems and solve them practically, but without becoming emotionally trapped in them. It's like someone caring for a sick plant. Instead of just complaining about its wilted appearance, they start watering it, fertilizing it, and exposing it to sunlight. The focus is on the health that can be restored, not on the disease that's already there. A powerful exercise recommended by the manuscript is the practice of clear and repeated visualization. It's not just about vague imagining. It's about constructing clear, emotionally charged internal images, as if they were already real. When you visualize in detail and feel the experience as if you were living it now, your subconscious begins to accept this vision as normal, as familiar. And when something becomes familiar to the subconscious, your mind, your choices, and even your body begin to act toward that scenario. This practice is not an escape, but a mental training that prepares you to recognize opportunities and make decisions aligned with the future you desire. The manuscript recounts cases where ordinary people completely transformed their financial lives simply by practicing this habit with discipline. One of them, for example, decided she wanted to multiply her earnings tenfold. Instead of simply wishing or complaining about her situation, she constructed a specific mental scene. She saw herself signing an important contract, feeling the weight of the pen in her hand, looking into the client's eyes, hearing the sound of the paper being placed on the table. She repeated this scene every day until it became so real in her mind that it felt like a memory. Shortly thereafter, an unexpected opportunity arose, and the scene repeated itself exactly as she had envisioned. This type of narrative isn't magic, but a logical consequence. When you already see yourself in a state of prosperity, your behavior changes. You act with more confidence, negotiate with greater clarity, and make decisions that align you with what you desire. People notice this subtle shift and respond differently. Opportunities that previously went unnoticed begin to be noticed. All this because your mind has been conditioned to see abundance, not scarcity. Another essential teaching from the manuscript concerns mental frequency. It explains that the mind works like a radio, constantly emitting signals. If your frequency is fear, worry, or resentment, you can only pick up experiences that vibrate at that frequency. It's like trying to listen to classical music on a station that only transmits static. No matter how much you turn the knob, if you don't change the frequency, the sound will never be clear. Similarly, to receive opportunities for prosperity, you need to tune into thoughts and feelings of trust, abundance, and gratitude. This frequency shift doesn't happen out of nowhere. It requires daily practice. The manuscript suggests mental programming phrases that act as access keys to this new attunement. They're simple statements, but spoken with conviction and emotion, such as, "I live in an abundant universe," "Wealth constantly flows to me," and "I receive more than I give." The secret isn't in the words themselves, but in the emotion you put into them. Each time you speak with feeling, you're sending your subconscious a new code, which gradually replaces old patterns of scarcity. But here's the detail many overlook. It's not enough to talk about abundance and act like someone living in scarcity. The manuscript teaches that your actions need to be aligned with your new prosperity identity. This means that even before seeing external results, you start acting like someone prosperous would. It's not about spending beyond your means, but about adopting attitudes of confidence, investing in yourself, treating money with respect, and adopting the attitude of someone who is already prepared to receive. The rich, before having money, already think, feel, and act like a rich person. They don't wait for external changes to then change internally. They first create their internal environment, and as a natural consequence, their external life adapts. This is the secret that is so often hidden. You don't become rich and then think like a rich person. You think like a rich person and then become rich. So I'd like to propose a simple exercise. Close your eyes for a few seconds and imagine a scene where you've already achieved a much greater level of prosperity than you do today. Visualize the environment, the people, and the details around you. Feel the emotions of confidence, freedom, and tranquility. After a few moments, open your eyes and say out loud, "I am already prosperous. I already live in abundance." This daily practice creates the bridge between your present and the future you desire. One of the most profound revelations of the hidden manuscript is that wealth is not a destiny, but a state of consciousness. This means that prosperity begins not when money enters your life, but when your mind begins to accept abundance as natural. This is a radical reversal of what most people believe. We typically think that we will only feel confident, secure, and free when we have a certain amount in our bank account. But the manuscript insists the order is reversed. First, you feel, think, and act like someone prosperous. Then your external life responds to this pattern. The problem is that we've been trained the wrong way. From an early age, we hear phrases like, "Money doesn't fall from the sky. You have to suffer to make a living. Only some are lucky." This conditioning creates in us a mindset of constant struggle. We grow up believing that abundance is something distant, almost unattainable, reserved only for a select few. The manuscript, however, reveals that this belief is the real obstacle. It's not the lack of opportunities, it's not the government, it's not family. It's the inner belief that prosperity is rare. This belief in itself blocks our ability to receive. Imagine two people faced with the same opportunity. One deeply believes that it will always be difficult to grow financially, that wealth is not for them. The other has already trained their mind to think about expansion, to hope for the best. Who do you think will act with more confidence? Who will notice the details that can open new doors? Who will persist even in the face of small difficulties? The answer is obvious. the second person. This is what the manuscript teaches. Wealth begins in the mind and then manifests itself in circumstances. Another essential point is the concept of thought frequency. The manuscript compares the mind to a radio transmitter. When you think about fear, lack, or worry, you're emitting a frequency of scarcity, and inevitably you pick up situations that confirm this same scarcity. This is why so many people, even trying to improve, keep repeating the same problems. It's not bad luck. It's just a matter of tuning in. To change reality, you need to change the station in your mind. It's like tuning the radio. Only when you tune in to the right station does the music of abundance begin to play clearly. A practical way to make this change is through daily affirmations, but not as simple, mechanically repeated phrases. The manuscript is very clear in stating that there's no point in speaking words without feeling. Repetition only works when it's charged with real emotion. For example, when saying "wealth flows constantly to me," you should close your eyes and feel the tranquility of having your needs met, imagining the relief, security, and confidence. This emotion is what imprints the new programming on the subconscious. Without emotion, it's just empty sound. Now you might be wondering, how can I feel prosperity if I'm still experiencing difficulties? This is where the manuscript's most counterintuitive secret comes in. You don't need to wait for reality to change to feel prosperous. You can start now, consciously choosing what to think and feel. The mind doesn't differentiate between something experienced and something intensely imagined. When you practice feeling abundance daily, your body and mind begin to respond as if it were already a reality. This changes your behavior, your decisions, and consequently, your results. Another powerful lesson is the importance of acting in accordance with your new identity, even before seeing external results. This doesn't mean spending more than you can afford or living in fantasies, but starting to act in a way that's consistent with an abundance mindset. For example, instead of constantly complaining about what you don't have, you start being grateful for what you do have. Instead of living in fear of loss, you focus on how you can expand. Instead of comparing yourself to others, you begin to celebrate others' success as proof that prosperity is possible for you too. This point about celebrating others' success is particularly interesting. Most people feel envy or discomfort when they see someone else thriving. This feeling is a trap, as it reinforces the idea that someone else's success diminishes their own chances. The manuscript teaches us the opposite. When someone prospers, it's living proof that abundance exists. By celebrating others' success, you send your subconscious a powerful message. If they can do it, so can I. This small mindset adjustment has transformative power because it aligns you with expansion, not limitation. Gratitude also appears as a central pillar in the manuscript. But not just gratitude for visible results. He emphasizes the practice of anticipatory gratitude. This means giving thanks for what has not yet physically manifested. When you give thanks before receiving, you are showing your subconscious that you have already accepted abundance as a reality. This dissolves anxiety because the feeling of "I don't have it yet" disappears and the certainty of "it's already coming" emerges. This emotional state creates calm, confidence, and openness, which are the perfect conditions for perceiving opportunities that previously went unnoticed. I want to propose a practical exercise for you now. Close your eyes and say out loud, "I am grateful for the wealth that is already flowing into my life." Repeat this a few times, but don't act like a robot. Feel this gratitude as if you were already enjoying abundance. Imagine the relief of seeing your bills paid, the peace of mind of having savings, the freedom to choose without fear. This simple practice, repeated daily, completely shifts your mental frequency. Finally, the manuscript reminds us that wealth isn't just about accumulating possessions, but about an internal state of confidence and expansion. When you begin to live with this awareness, the outside world inevitably responds. Money, resources, and opportunities are natural consequences of a mind aligned with abundance. The question remains, are you willing to reprogram your thoughts to live this new reality? The hidden manuscript emphasizes a point that can completely change your worldview. You don't attract what you desire, you attract what you are. This phrase, when deeply understood, explains why so many people spend their entire lives wishing for wealth without ever achieving it. Desire alone, no matter how intense, isn't powerful enough to transform reality. What truly creates change is the identity you carry, the way you see yourself, and position yourself in life. If you harbor within you the image of someone limited, needy, and always lacking, This will be the pattern your mind will reproduce in the external world. It's common to see people dreaming of a prosperous life, but living daily in habits that reinforce scarcity. They say they want abundance, but repeat phrases like, "It's not possible, it's impossible, only for the rich." They desire freedom, but cling to fear, comparison, and resentment. This internal contradiction prevents any real transformation. The manuscript teaches that the secret lies in aligning identity and desire. It's not enough to want wealth. You must feel rich internally, think rich, and act rich, even before seeing external evidence of it. This alignment begins with awareness of words. Words aren't just expressions of what we think. They shape our minds, program our subconscious, and set the tone for our decisions. When you repeat phrases of limitation, you're strengthening an identity of scarcity. When you affirm phrases of abundance, you're nurturing a prosperous identity. The manuscript recommends immediately replacing any statements of lack with affirmations that express confidence and growth. For example, instead of saying, "I don't have the money for this," say, "I'm building the resources for this." Instead of saying, "Things are difficult," declare, "I'm finding new opportunities every day." These small linguistic shifts, repeated consistently, reprogram the way you relate to the world, but simply changing words isn't enough if there's no emotion involved. The manuscript warns that mechanically repeated phrases don't create transformation. What really works is when you declare something and feel the corresponding emotion. If you say, "Wealth flows to me," but deep down you feel fear and disbelief, the subconscious captures the emotion, not the words. The correct practice is to unite thought, word, and feeling in a single direction. When this union occurs, the subconscious accepts the new idea as truth and begins to adjust its perceptions and behaviors to materialize it. Another powerful lesson from the manuscript concerns the difference between competing and creating. Society has trained us to believe that we must compete for space, resources, and recognition. This competitive mindset reinforces the idea that there isn't enough for everyone. And by accepting this premise, you tune into scarcity. The manuscript teaches that the true path to prosperity is not to compete, but to create. When you create, you're not taking from anyone. You're expanding, bringing something new, contributing to the whole. This attitude not only opens doors, but also eliminates the emotional burden of constant comparison. See the energy difference. Competing generates fear, tension, and insecurity. Creating generates lightness, freedom, and infinite possibilities. People who live in the energy of competition spend energy trying to beat others. People who live in the energy of creation spend energy expanding their own horizons. The first mindset imprisons, the second liberates. The manuscript invites us to change the question from "How can I win?" to "What can I create that no one else is creating?" This simple shift completely changes the way you see life. Now, I want to highlight something that can transform the way you respond to the success of others. The manuscript teaches that one of the most powerful practices is to bless the prosperity of others. This means that instead of feeling envy or frustration when you see someone prosper, you consciously declare, "His success proves that mine is possible." This act dissolves the scarcity mindset and opens space for your mind to embrace abundance as something expansive and limitless. Try it now. Think of someone you know who has recently prospered and say out loud, "His success proves that mine is possible." This small exercise, repeated repeatedly, profoundly reprograms your mind. Furthermore, the manuscript places gratitude as a central key to the process. Gratitude not only for what you already have, but especially for what is still on the way. This practice is called anticipatory gratitude. When you give thanks before receiving, you send a clear message to your subconscious. "I trust this is already mine." This trust eliminates anxiety, dissolves fear, and aligns you with the state of those who have already received. And when you place yourself in this state, your actions and decisions begin to reflect this trust. It's as if you're already experiencing abundance before it fully manifests. An interesting detail revealed in the manuscript is that anxiety and gratitude cannot coexist. If you are truly grateful, there is no room for anxiety. This means that gratitude is a direct antidote to the excessive worry that so often paralyzes people. By cultivating gratitude daily, you automatically reduce tension levels and increase your mental clarity. This in itself creates a more fertile internal environment for prosperity to manifest. I'd now like to propose a practical exercise for you. Close your eyes for a few moments and think of 3 things you already have that you can feel genuinely grateful for. Then, think of 3 things you still desire, but be grateful as if they were already a reality. Say out loud, "I am grateful that I already have and complete with your desire." Feel the emotion as if it were true now. This practice, repeated every morning, changes the way your subconscious perceives reality. The manuscript makes it clear. Wealth is built long before it appears on your bank statement. It's born from the identity you cultivate, the emotional frequency you maintain, and the aligned actions you choose daily. You don't need to wait to become prosperous. You need to start being prosperous now within yourself, in every thought, word, and action. The hidden manuscript offers a teaching that seems obvious, but which almost no one practices. Wealth must first exist in your mind as a clear image before it becomes reality. It's like building a house. No architect begins laying bricks without first having a detailed blueprint. The design comes first, and only then does the work arise. However, when it comes to prosperity, most people try to do the opposite. They act without clarity, without direction, without defining exactly what they want. They constantly wish they had more money, but they don't know how much, why, or what their life would be like when this abundance arrives. This mental vagueness prevents the subconscious from creating the necessary alignment. The manuscript calls this the invisible blueprint of wealth. For something to manifest in the external world, it must exist in a structured way in the internal world. This doesn't just mean dreaming or fantasizing. It means building a clear, detailed, emotionally charged vision and revisiting that vision every day until it becomes more real than the current situation. The clearer your mental blueprint, the faster your subconscious begins to organize your thoughts, choices, and actions to make this vision inevitable. This is why so many people feel lost. They want to prosper, but they have no specific direction. Imagine a ship with no set course. It may have the most powerful engine, but it will drift at sea, wasting energy, never getting anywhere. Such is the life of those who don't have a mental plan for prosperity. They work, strive, try various things, but the results don't accumulate because there's no focus. The manuscript teaches that focus is power. When you focus your energy on a clear vision, everything else begins to fall into place. Another essential point of this teaching is that visualization isn't just about imagining images, but also about experiencing emotions. The subconscious mind isn't convinced by logical reasoning alone. It needs emotion to accept something as truth. That's why the manuscript emphasizes 3 elements in creating this invisible blueprint: clarity, emotion, and repetition. Clarity means defining details, how much you want to earn, how you want to live, what lifestyle you want to experience. Emotion means feeling intensely, as if it were already real, bringing a sense of confidence and tranquility to the body. Repetition means practicing this visualization every day until it becomes as familiar as a memory. The manuscript cites examples of people who radically changed their financial lives through this practice. One of them imagined, in great detail, the moment of signing a contract that would transform her career. She saw the room, the table, felt the weight of the pen, even heard the sound of the paper being handled. This practice, repeated daily, imprinted on her subconscious the certainty that it was already a reality. A few months later, that exact scene manifested itself, without her having been able to foresee the logical path for it to occur. This type of account is no coincidence. It is proof that when the mind is reprogrammed, it begins to attract and perceive circumstances that confirm the vision created internally. But the manuscript warns, visualizing correctly doesn't just mean creating beautiful images. It's about living them intensely. It's not about wishing one day I'll have this. It's about feeling, this is mine now. This subtle shift in internal language makes all the difference. When you think about the future as if it's already happening, your body and your decisions begin to act in accordance with this certainty. And when you act as if it's inevitable, the right doors begin to open. Another powerful teaching from the manuscript is to combine visualization with gratitude. This is called the visualized gratitude formula. It's not enough to mentally visualize your prosperous life. You need to be grateful, as if it were already happening. This practice creates a dual programming. On the one hand, the subconscious receives clear images of what you desire. On the other, it becomes accustomed to the emotion of gratitude, which is the signal that it has already been received. This fusion of images and feelings generates an immense force of attraction. I want you to try it now. Close your eyes for a few moments and imagine a future scene in which your financial life has already been transformed. It could be you traveling, paying all your bills with ease, or helping your family. Construct this image. Now, as you visualize it, say quietly or just mentally, "I am grateful because this is already a reality in my life." Repeat until you feel a warm feeling inside, until your body believes it. This is the central exercise of the manuscript. The text also reveals an important detail. New thoughts are fragile, like newly planted seeds. They need to be protected. This means taking care of your mental diet. There's no point practicing visualization and gratitude every day if the rest of the time you're filled with negative news, talk of scarcity, and environments that reinforce limitations. The manuscript advises eliminating these contaminants, at least during the construction phase of the new mental pattern. It's like protecting a tree seedling in its first months. Without protection, it won't withstand storms. Therefore, it's crucial to filter what enters your mind. If someone says that's impossible, immediately replace it with a confident affirmation. If you hear, "Life is getting harder," repeat to yourself, "I live in an abundant universe." This vigilance is an essential part of the process because it ensures that your new seeds of prosperity aren't stifled by old patterns. The manuscript is clear in stating, wealth is not created by chance. It is the result of a clear mental plan, protected and nurtured with daily discipline. And you can start right now, planting within yourself a clear image of the life you desire. The hidden manuscript teaches something that may seem surprising. True wealth transformation does not lie in grand, isolated acts, but in silent, repeated habits that, over time, shape the entire structure of life. The human mind is like a garden. If you tend it daily, water it, fertilize it, and protect it, you will inevitably see flowers and fruit. But if you neglect it, allow weeds to grow, or forget to water it, then the garden will be overtaken by neglect. The same is true of the mind in relation to wealth. It is not a single event that changes everything, but the constant care of thoughts, emotions, and words. One of the central practices highlighted by the manuscript is the discipline of watching your words. Words are seeds, and every time you speak about your financial life, you are planting a seed in the fertile soil of your subconscious. Most people plant seeds of scarcity without realizing it. Expressions like, "I never have enough money," "Everything is expensive," "You can't prosper in this country," act as commands that shape reality. Even when spoken casually, they program the mind to see only obstacles, reinforcing the feeling of lack. Therefore, the manuscript recommends creating the habit of automatically replacing every negative expression with a positive statement of abundance. This doesn't mean denying reality, but rather consciously choosing which pattern you want to reinforce. If you catch yourself saying, "I can't afford this," you can replace it with, "I'm working on getting this soon." This simple shift doesn't seem like much, but the cumulative effect is profound. Over time, your mind begins to operate from a place of expansion, not limitation. Another essential habit taught in the manuscript is the practice of daily gratitude, but there's an important detail here. It's not superficial gratitude, repeated like an empty ritual. It's gratitude felt, lived, and experienced in the body. The text explains that true gratitude even changes brain chemistry, activating areas that release tranquility and expand perception. In other words, when you genuinely practice gratitude, your brain literally begins to see more opportunities that were previously invisible. This phenomenon is compared to a mental radar. You begin to notice paths that have always been around you, but that a scarcity mindset prevented you from seeing. The manuscript suggests a simple yet powerful exercise. Every morning, before you start your day, list 10 things you're already grateful for. They can be simple: health, a meal, a friendship. Then add 3 more things you still desire, but write them as if they're already a reality. For example, "I'm grateful that I already live in financial abundance." "I'm grateful that I already have the freedom to choose how I use my time." The key is to feel them as if they're true now. This combination of gratitude for what already exists and anticipatory gratitude for what's to come creates a magnetic state of mind. A very strong point of the manuscript is the warning against anxiety. It explains that anxiety and gratitude cannot coexist. If you're anxious, it's because you believe something is still missing. If you're grateful, it's because you accept what you already have. This simple difference completely changes the energy you transmit. When someone lives in anxiety, they begin to vibrate with scarcity. transmitting insecurity and fear. When they live in gratitude, they transmit confidence, tranquility, and openness. And it's precisely this energy that attracts opportunities and people aligned with prosperity. Another essential habit revealed by the manuscript is that of mental protection. The text explains that new thought patterns are fragile in the early stages. It's like a small flame that needs to be protected from the wind until it becomes strong enough to withstand it. This means that as you reprogram your mind for abundance, you must be selective about external influences. Negative news, toxic conversations, and criticism from people who don't believe in prosperity act like a cold wind that can extinguish the flame of your new mindset. The manuscript suggests a practice called a 7-day mental diet. During this period, you commit to eliminating all content that reinforces scarcity. This means not watching fear-filled news, not participating in conversations filled with complaints, not repeating negative phrases. Instead, you feed your mind only with thoughts and information that support abundance. This seemingly simple exercise has a profound impact. In just 1 week, your energy, clarity, and even your disposition begin to shift because your mind is no longer contaminated by patterns of scarcity. The text also emphasizes the importance of repetition. The subconscious doesn't transform overnight. It needs to be trained like a muscle that strengthens with daily exercise. Each affirmation, each visualization, each gratitude practice is like a series of repetitions in the mental gym. The more you practice, the stronger the internal connections become until prosperity becomes a natural and automatic state. I want to propose a practical exercise now. Throughout the day, carefully observe your words. Every time you notice an expression of lack, immediately replace it with one of confidence and abundance. Do this consciously, even if it feels forced at first. At the end of the day, write down on a piece of paper the phrases you managed to transform. This simple practice will show you how, by changing words, you already begin to change the mental atmosphere around you. The manuscript is clear. Wealth is not an isolated achievement, but a state built through daily habits. Every word, every thought, every emotion is a brick in the construction of your prosperity. The difference between those who thrive and those who remain stuck in difficulty lies precisely in the discipline of cultivating these silent but powerful habits. The hidden manuscript brings a revelation that, when understood, completely changes the way you relate to money. True wealth lies not in the accumulation of possessions, but in the vibration you maintain every day. This may sound abstract at first glance, but think about it. 2 people can have the same amount of money, but one lives in constant fear of losing it, while the other feels tranquility and confidence in the future. Who, in fact, is richer? Money alone does not guarantee prosperity. It is the consciousness with which you handle it that determines your experience. Most people live in a state of constant vigilance, as if money were an enemy about to slip through their fingers. This tension creates a hostile relationship with prosperity. The manuscript warns that when you live in this energy of fear, you are literally repelling new opportunities. Money senses your resistance, as if you were saying, "I don't trust you." Those who cultivate a state of trust and tranquility, however, create a natural field of attraction. They don't need to desperately chase after everything, because the very energy they transmit opens doors. This teaching is deeply connected to the concept of natural expectation. The manuscript explains that the rich not only believe in prosperity, they expect it as something inevitable. For them, wealth is not a coincidence, but a natural consequence of who they are and how they think. For most people, prosperity is seen as a distant possibility, almost like a lottery prize. This difference in attitude makes all the difference. Those who naturally expect prosperity act with more confidence, perceive more opportunities, and persist more in the face of difficulties. Those who merely wish but don't expect oscillate between hope and doubt, wasting energy and sabotaging their own progress. One of the most frequently repeated points throughout the manuscript is that the mind works like a magnet. It attracts that which is compatible with its dominant frequency. If you vibrate in scarcity, you attract experiences that confirm that scarcity. If you vibrate in abundance, you attract situations that confirm abundance. It's simple, yet profound. The question, therefore, is not just what you want, but what you are internally. It is your identity, more than your desires, that shapes your reality. And how can we change this identity? The manuscript gives us very clear clues. Through the consistent practice of visualization, affirmation, and gratitude. These three tools, when used together, reprogram the subconscious. Visualization creates a clear image of the desired future. Affirmation verbally strengthens this new identity, and gratitude emotionally seals the certainty that it is already real. This triad is presented as the key to transforming any situation of limitation into expansion. The text also reveals a little-known but extremely powerful practice: specific anticipatory gratitude. This means not just giving thanks in a generic way, but also giving thanks for concrete situations you haven't yet experienced. For example, I'm grateful for the contract I've already signed. I'm grateful for the house I already own. I'm grateful for the financial freedom I already enjoy. When you declare this, your subconscious receives a clear command: this has already happened. This conviction changes your attitude, your energy, and your decisions. It's as if you're already living your desired future right now. Another aspect highlighted in the manuscript is the importance of dissolving anxiety. He explains that anxiety is the state of someone who doesn't fully believe in what they desire. It's as if the mind is divided between faith and doubt, creating a field of contradiction that prevents results from manifesting. The solution is to cultivate calm confidence. And the key to this, once again, is gratitude. When you truly give thanks as if you've already received, there's no room for doubt. Gratitude replaces anxiety with certainty. To reinforce this, the manuscript proposes a practical exercise. Every night, before going to sleep, quietly repeat 3 phrases of anticipated gratitude. Choose something you still desire, but declare it as if it were already a reality. For example, I am grateful for the prosperity that is already manifesting in my life. I am grateful for the financial peace of mind I already have. I am grateful for the freedom I already experience. By doing this before bed, you program your subconscious to work during sleep, aligning your mind with a state of abundance. Another strong point of the manuscript is the idea that your vibration is constantly transmitted, even when you don't say anything. Your posture, your walk, your gaze, your breathing, everything communicates the frequency you're on. Prosperous people radiate confidence, calm, and generosity. People trapped in scarcity radiate fear, tension, and insecurity. Life responds to this silent vibration. This is why some people seem to naturally attract opportunities, while others, even with effort, seem to push them away. It's not luck, it's vibration. I want you to do a little practice now. Take 3 deep breaths and exhale slowly, then say out loud, I trust the flow of life. Wealth is already flowing to me. Repeat calmly until you feel a slight internal shift, as if you're more calm and open. This little exercise helps align your vibration with confidence, dissolving tension. The manuscript makes it clear, prosperity isn't something you chase, it's something you tune into, and this tuning comes from what you cultivate internally every day. The more you practice this vibration of abundance, the more natural it becomes, until prosperity becomes inevitable in your life. The hidden manuscript presents an idea that seems to defy common logic. Wealth is not achieved by force, but by the gentleness of a well-directed mind. Most people believe that prosperity comes only through struggle, excessive effort, and constant sacrifice. This thinking creates a warlike mentality against life. But the text teaches that true prosperity arises from an organized, clear, and aligned mind, not from tension. When you live in a state of struggle, you transmit to your subconscious the message that life is difficult, and it reproduces this same difficulty in the form of external situations. When you live in a state of confidence and clarity, your subconscious organizes reality so that things flow more naturally. Of course, effort and action are necessary, but the manuscript makes it clear that action without internal alignment becomes nothing more than wear and tear. How many people have you seen working hard day after day without ever getting anywhere? They confuse busyness with progress. They do a lot but in a misaligned way, and that's why the results don't appear. The text calls this scattered action. The secret is to replace scattered action with aligned action, that is, to act from a consciousness of abundance, knowing exactly where you're going. This is the difference between rowing against the current and rowing with the flow. The manuscript explains that the mind, when aligned, creates an effect called an invisible bridge. It's as if each thought of abundance and each action consistent with it builds the planks of a bridge that connects your current situation to your desired future. If you act with fear and doubt, you break these planks. If you act with confidence and clarity, you strengthen the structure. This bridge is not visible to the eye, but it is real within the subconscious, and the more solid it becomes, the more inevitable the arrival at the destination of prosperity becomes. Another powerful teaching is that of the personal magnetic field. The manuscript describes that we don't attract what we simply desire, but what we already are vibrationally. This means there's no need to chase opportunities, force connections, or beg for attention. When you maintain a vibration of abundance, your presence emits a field that naturally attracts compatible people, resources, and situations. This is the difference between those who are always chasing life and those who allow life to rush toward them. This magnetic field isn't built with fancy techniques, but with simple, consistent practices. The manuscript recommends dedicating a few minutes a day to deeply feeling the emotion of already experiencing prosperity. 3 minutes a day, with your eyes closed, breathing calmly, and feeling gratitude for what's still on the way, is enough to change the entire energy you transmit. When this practice becomes habitual, your body, your gaze, and even your posture begin to reflect this tranquility, and those around you notice it, even without you saying a word. The text also discusses the importance of focused intention. It explains that most people get lost because they want too many things at once, but don't give enough attention to any of them. The result is distraction, lack of focus, and frustration. The manuscript teaches that it's necessary to choose clear goals and concentrate mental energy on them, like a laser beam cutting through steel. This intensity of focus creates a power far greater than 1,000 vague desires. Clear intention, combined with the emotion of already possessing it, creates a kind of mental command that the subconscious accepts as an order and begins working to make it a reality. Another key point is the difference between hope and certainty. The manuscript states that hope is fragile because it always carries the idea of doubt. Certainty, on the other hand, is unshakable because it eliminates the possibility of failure. Those who live only hoping for results never fully commit, but those who choose to live with certainty act as if it were already inevitable. And it's precisely this attitude that changes everything. When you believe fully, you act with more courage, exude more confidence, and naturally attract better opportunities. I'd now like to propose a practical exercise of focused intention. Choose a specific financial goal. It could be an amount, an asset, or a concrete situation. Close your eyes and mentally describe every detail, how you feel about achieving it, what changes in your life, who is around you. Then declare out loud, "I decide that this is mine." Repeat a few times until you feel the conviction grow within you. This is the first step in transforming a desire into a firm command to your subconscious. The manuscript also warns about the dangers of comparison. When you compare yourself to others, you're unconsciously accepting the idea that you're in competition, and this reinforces scarcity. Comparison steals your creative energy and weakens your magnetic field because you position yourself as someone who needs to prove something. Instead, the text suggests adopting a creative mindset. I don't need to be better than anyone else. I need to be the creator of what's unique about me. This stance not only frees up energy, but also expands possibilities by creating space for new ideas to emerge. Finally, the manuscript reinforces, prosperity is not the result of luck or chance, but of a silent discipline of the mind. Small daily exercises of gratitude, visualization, and focused intention, combined with aligned actions, create an inevitable cycle of growth. What seems distant today becomes closer, step by step, until it becomes as natural as breathing. The hidden manuscript asserts that one of the greatest secrets to prosperity lies in understanding the hidden power of the words we use every day. Most people believe that words are merely tools to describe reality, but the text insists that words don't just describe, they create. Each repeated phrase carries within itself the power of a command, and the subconscious obeys these commands without question. This is why expressions like "I can't afford it," "I'm unlucky with money," or "those things aren't for me" are so destructive. They function as negative programming, shaping life to repeat the same patterns of scarcity. The manuscript teaches that if we want to transform our reality, we must first transform our language. The words we use are invisible molds within which our lives are organized. If the molds are small, limited, and filled with lack, life compresses within them. But when the molds are broad, abundant, and positive, reality expands to fill that space. This is one of the reasons prosperous people speak differently. They avoid victimhood, disempower lack, and treat money as something natural, in constant flux. The text recommends creating wealth mantras, short, direct phrases that serve to reprogram the subconscious. But once again, he warns, there's no point in repeating them mechanically. You need to declare them with emotion and conviction. Some suggested phrases are, all the money I need constantly flows to me. I live in an abundant universe. I always receive more than I give. When said with feeling, these statements begin to be accepted by the subconscious as new commands, slowly replacing old patterns of scarcity. In addition to the conscious choice of words, the manuscript highlights the importance of the timing of their use. The subconscious is most receptive at 3 times of the day: upon waking, when it's still in a state of transition between sleep and wakefulness; throughout the day, when the mind tends to wander with worries; and before bed, when the subconscious takes full control. Therefore, repeating mantras at these 3 times creates a multiplier effect. It's like programming the mind first thing in the morning, reinforcing it throughout the day, and solidifying it before bed. The manuscript also draws attention to what it calls linguistic contamination. This means that, even if you practice positive affirmations, if you spend the rest of the day feeding yourself negative phrases, criticisms, complaints, and bad news, you'll be nullifying your progress. It's like trying to fill a bucket with clean water while there's a hole in the bottom. Therefore, protecting your verbal environment is an essential part of the process. This doesn't mean living in isolation or denying reality, but consciously choosing what you allow into and out of your mind. One of the suggested exercises is verbal vigilance. For an entire day, carefully observe every phrase you say related to money, prosperity, or the future. At the end of the day, write it down in a notebook. You'll be surprised to realize how, without realizing it, you repeat statements of scarcity. This mindfulness exercise is the first step to change. You can only transform what you recognize. Another important point of the manuscript is the connection between words and identity. He explains that every time you declare something, you reinforce who you believe yourself to be. If you say, "I'm always unlucky with money," you're affirming your identity as someone limited. But when you declare, "I'm prosperous," even if you don't yet see external results, you're reinforcing the identity of abundance. Over time, your mind begins to act according to this identity, and your actions begin to reflect this new belief. The text also highlights that words affect not only you, but also the people around you. When you constantly talk about scarcity, you spread that energy to your family, friends, and colleagues, negatively influencing them. Similarly, when you talk about abundance, you inspire and infect others. This is the collective power of language. It not only shapes your reality, but also contributes to shaping the reality of those around you. To cement this learning, I want you to do a practical exercise. Choose one of the following phrases and repeat it aloud 3 times, feeling the emotion in each word. I live in an abundant universe. Wealth constantly flows to me. Or, I am prosperous in all I do. Choose the one that resonates most with you. Then write in the comments, my words create abundance. This simple practice reinforces your commitment to consciously using your language as a tool for creation. The manuscript concludes this teaching by saying that wealth does not begin with great external achievements, but with small daily language choices. Each word is a seed, and the harvest will inevitably come. It's up to you to decide whether to plant words of scarcity or abundance. The hidden manuscript emphasizes something most people ignore. Prosperity is not a matter of luck, but of mental habit. What you repeatedly think becomes the backdrop of your life. The mind functions like fertile ground that makes no distinction between good or bad seeds. If you plant thoughts of scarcity, you will reap limitations. If you plant thoughts of abundance, you will reap prosperity. The ground is neutral. What makes the difference is what you decide to put into it every day. This metaphor of the soil helps to understand why many people, even though they desire wealth, remain trapped in financial difficulties. They desire abundance, but daily they sow seeds of worry, doubt, fear, and complaints. It's like expecting to harvest grapes after planting thorns. There's no way to circumvent this law. The manuscript is categorical. External life is merely a reflection of internal cultivation. Those who desire different results must first change the quality of the seeds they plant in their minds. The text teaches that the mental habit of wealth begins with vigilance. This means carefully observing your own thoughts and noticing when they are moving towards scarcity. Most people live on autopilot, repeating the same old patterns. The manuscript suggests a practice called inversion moment. It works like this. Whenever you notice a negative thought, you interrupt it and immediately replace it with a thought of expansion. For example, if "I won't be able to pay my bills" arises, you interrupt it and replace it with "I always find resources to meet my needs." This inversion, done consistently, gradually reprograms the subconscious. Another powerful habit described in the manuscript is the practice of guided imagery. Many people use their imagination destructively, creating scenarios of fear, failure, and loss. They spend hours worrying about what might go wrong, and this fuels a limiting identity. The text teaches that the same energy can be used to create scenarios of abundance. Instead of imagining catastrophes, imagine solutions. Instead of predicting failures, predict victories. Imagination is like a mental screen, and whatever you project onto it, sooner or later, tends to manifest in your life. The manuscript also warns that isolated thoughts don't have much power. What truly shapes life are dominant thoughts, those that repeat themselves frequently and consistently. An occasional worry doesn't have the power to ruin your financial life, but the daily repetition of worries creates a pattern that the subconscious accepts as normal. Likewise, an isolated positive affirmation doesn't transform anything, but repeated daily practice creates deep roots that alter identity. The key is consistency. Another fundamental point is the connection between mental habits and emotional habits. It's not enough to think differently. You have to feel differently. Thoughts of abundance only become reality when accompanied by feelings of trust, gratitude, and security. Therefore, the manuscript recommends that every mental practice be emotionally charged. Visualizing wealth isn't just about imagining numbers, but also about feeling the tranquility of financial freedom, the joy of providing comfort, and the relief of being secure. It's this feeling that cements the new identity. The text also emphasizes that new mental habits require protection at first. This is because the external environment often reinforces scarcity. Friends, family, and colleagues can unwittingly sabotage this process by repeating negative phrases or criticizing those who think differently. Therefore, the manuscript recommends creating moments of conscious isolation in which you distance yourself from external influences and dedicate a few minutes solely to nurturing thoughts of abundance. These moments act as watering new seeds, ensuring they take root before facing storms. One suggested practice is to set aside 10 minutes of silence every day to visualize and experience abundance. During this time, tune out distractions, breathe deeply, and focus on images and feelings of prosperity. Imagine yourself living the life you desire, not as a distant fantasy, but as a present reality. This daily exercise creates an energy field so strong that it gradually overcomes old patterns of scarcity. I want you to do a practical exercise now. Close your eyes for a few seconds and choose a thought of abundance to repeat. It could be something like, "I live in a universe rich in possibilities." Repeat it calmly, feeling the emotion in each word. Then, open your eyes and notice how you feel. If you feel even a small internal shift, know that this is a sign that the mental habit is beginning to form. The manuscript concludes this section by stating that wealth is not the result of luck, but of disciplined repetition. What you think about today repeatedly will become your tomorrow. The question is, what seeds are you planting in your mind right now? The hidden manuscript explains that poverty, before being a material condition, is a mental condition. This means that the lack of visible resources is merely a consequence of a thought pattern cultivated over time. This revelation may be uncomfortable for many, but it is also liberating. After all, if the cause is internal, the solution can be too. The text insists that wealth is not created by desperate hoarding, but by transforming the internal field in which external life is organized. One of the manuscript's strongest points is the distinction between a survival mindset and a prosperity mindset. A survival mindset is marked by fear, urgency, haste, and constant worry about loss. Those who live in this state constantly feel that money is insufficient, that they need to hold on to every coin, that any expense is a threat. This behavior generates constant tension and paradoxically attracts more scarcity. A prosperity mindset, on the other hand, is marked by confidence, tranquility, and a sense of expansion. Those who live in this state treat money as a flow, something that comes in and out, but always returns multiplied. This confidence creates the freedom to perceive opportunities that fear would otherwise overlook. The manuscript provides a curious example. Two people receive the same unexpected sum of money. One, dominated by a survival mindset, immediately thinks about how this money might not be enough, how quickly it will run out, and how desperately they need to hoard it. The other, guided by a prosperity mindset, is grateful, uses it wisely, and already expects more to come. The result is that the first reinforces their state of scarcity, while the second further expands their abundance. What determines the future is not the amount received, but the mental attitude toward it. Want to keep listening to about wealth? Click on the playlist I left on the screen.